My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good morning, and welcome to Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner. Well, I wonder how many of you like math. Raise your hand. I'm not feeling too many hands raised, but I didn't like math that much. I didn't mind it, but I didn't like math too much when I was coming up. And we had a story back then, and it was one grain of rice. And I could remember that story vaguely, where it started off with one grain of rice, and then I see this picture in my head of a whole rice field. It's like it's in the water. A whole rice field. And, and so when I went to tell stories at the convalescent home, someone said to me, I said, "What's your favorite childhood story?" I think I told you this last week. And someone said one grain of rice. And that just brought back that memory of that story. So I went looking for that book, and I found One Grain of Rice. And it's by Demi. That's her author name. That's not her real name. And so I thought it was going to be about a rice field. It is a mathematical folk tale. So I'm going to read this to you. You have to read this story. This is a beautiful, beautiful book with beautiful, beautiful pictures. And, I couldn't just tell the story. I'd have to show you the pictures because they're beautiful. And this author loved to go to China, and India, I'm sorry. And this is pictures from India. And you see this beautiful Indian woman. Isn't she gorgeous? Clothes. They wore a lot of clothes. We slip on something, that's it. But their clothes were, I don't know. That's what you have to do when you're a storyteller. You have to learn all of these things. Why they dress the way they dress and look the way they looked. So this is a beautiful book. So I'm going to read you this story. See if you could figure it out. As I'm telling you the story, you figure out the answer, okay? You figure out how many kernels of rice. Here we go. Long ago in India, there lived a Raja who believed that he was wise and fair as a Raja should be. The people in the province were rice farmers. The Raja decreed that everyone must give nearly all of their rice to him. "I will store the rice safely," the Raja promised the people, "so that in time of famine, everyone will have rice to eat and no one will go hungry." Each year, the Raja's rice collectors gathered nearly all of the people's rice and carried it away to the royal storehouses. For many years, the rice grew well. The people gave nearly all of their rice to the Raja, and the storehouses were always full. But the people were left with only just enough rice to get by. Then one year, the rice grew badly, and there was famine and hunger. The people had no rice to give to Raja, and they had no rice to eat. The Raja's minister implored him, "Your Highness, let us open the royal storehouses and give the rice to the people as you promised." "No," said the Raja. "How do I know how long the famine may last? I must have the rice for myself. Promise or no promise, a Raja must not go hungry." Time went on. The people grew more and more hungry, but the Raja would not give out the rice. One day, the Raja ordered a feast for himself and his court, as it seemed to him a Raja should now and then, even when there is famine. A servant led an elephant from a royal storehouse to the palace, carrying 2 full baskets of rice. A village girl named Rainey saw that a trickle of rice was falling from one of the baskets. Quickly she jumped up and walked along beside the elephant, carrying the falling rice in her skirt. She was clever, and she began to make a plan. At the palace, a guard cried, "Halt! Thief! Where are you going with that rice?" "I am not a thief," Rainey replied. "This rice fell from one of the baskets, and I am returning it now to the Raja." When the Raja heard about Rainey's good deed, he asked his ministers to bring her before him. "I wish to reward you for returning what belonged to me," the Raja said to Rainey. "Ask me for anything, and you shall have it." "Your Highness," said Rainey, "I do not deserve any reward at all. But if you wish, you may give me 1 grain of rice." "Only 1 grain of rice?" exclaimed the Raja. "Surely you will allow me to reward you more plentifully, as a Raja should." "Very well," said Rainey. "If it pleases your Highness, you may reward me in this way. Today you will give me a single grain of rice. Then each day for 30 days you will give me double the rice you gave me the day before. Thus tomorrow you will give me 2 grains of rice. The next day 4 grains of rice, and so on for 30 days. "This seems still to be a modest reward," said the Raja, "but you shall have it." And Rainey was presented with a single grain of rice. The next day, Rainey was presented with 2 grains of rice. And the following day, Rainey was presented with 4 grains of rice. Okay, are you calculating? Are you mathematicians? Calculate, calculate. On the 9th day, Rainey was presented with 256 grains of rice. She had received in all 5 She had received in all 511 grains of rice, only enough for a small handful. This girl is honest, but not very clever, thought the Rajah. She would have gained more rice by keeping what fell into her skirt. On the 12th day, Rainey received 2,048 grains of rice, about 4 handfuls. On the 13th day, she received 4,096 grains of rice, enough to fill a bowl. On the 16th day, Rainey was presented with a bag containing 32,768 grains of rice. Altogether, she had enough rice for 2 full bags. This doubling adds up to more rice than I expected, thought the Rajah. But surely her rewards won't amount to much more. He's getting worried. On the 20th day, Rainey was presented with 16 more bags filled with rice. On the 21st day, she received 1,048,576 grains of rice, enough to fill a basket. On the 24th day, Rainey was presented with 8,388,608 grains of rice, enough to fill 8 baskets, which were carried to her by 8 royal deer. On the 27th day, 32 Brahma bulls were needed to deliver 64 baskets of rice. The Rajah was deeply troubled. 1 grain of rice has grown very great indeed, he thought, but I shall fulfill my reward to the end, as a Rajah should. On the 29th day, Rainey was presented with the contents of 2 royal storehouses. And wow. And I think we open here. Let me see. I'm going to show you. If you could see, do you see all of this? On the 30th and final day, 256 elephants crossed the Providence, carrying the contents of the last 4 royal storehouses. 536,870,912 grains of rice. Wow. Altogether, Rainey had received more than 1 billion grains of rice. The Rajah had no more rice to give. And what will you do with this rice, said the Rajah with a sigh, now that I have none? I shall give it to all the hungry people, said Rainy, and I shall leave a basket of rice for you, too, if you promise from now on to take only as much rice as you need. I promise, said the Rajah. And for the rest of his days, the Rajah was truly wise and fair, as a Rajah should be. 1 grain of rice. So what does that say to you? Huh? Okay, we're going to look at the chart now. Do you see the chart? Okay, let me put it down here. You see the chart? It goes all the way from 1 day, doubling the second day, and all the way to the third 30 days. Did anyone get it? Did you keep up with the story? Wow. I mean, would you ever think in 1 month, then 2, then 3, then 2, 1, then 2, then that doubles, that's 4, then that doubles, that's 8, then 8 and 8 is 16, that doubles, and then 16 and 16 is 32, that's doubles, 32 and 32 is 64, wow. 64 and 64 is 128, 128 and 128 is 256, 256 and 256 is 512, 512 and 512 is 1,024, 1,024 and 1,000 plus 1,024 is 2,048. On and on. 2,048 is 4,096. Now we've gone just 13 days from 1 grain of rice. And by the time she finishes on the 30th day, it is 536,870,912. So the answer to all of this, let's see if Pastor Stan has the answer, because I know he has a pencil in his hand and he's trying to figure it out. Oh, Pastor Stan, do you have the answer?
The answer is on the page there. I was looking at it.
Oh, no, gosh, I forgot.
It's right there. 530. You just
No.
gave. Oh, wait.
No,
That's what's
no.
that? 19?
No.
What is that? That's the 30th day.
Yeah. He has to give her. So the answer is 1 billion.
A billion. Wow.
73 million 741,823. More than 1 billion grains of rice. Wow. Out of 1 grain of rice. So now this story is from an oral tradition, and it's really, this was published in 1997, but the genre, the story is actually from the 13th century. And there are many stories like this. There's a story like this about chess. Yeah, 1 grain of rice, and it's a chess game, and you could you could imagine. I heard it when I was a child from. It was a rice field, and I just can't remember that story. I tried to figure it out, but there are hundreds of stories that 1 grain of rice would fit in. Could you write a story starting with just one thing and make it go. Maybe not grain of rice. Maybe, on and on, just like one grain of rice. Your success starts with your first step, and you keep on going and you keep on going. If you don't sit down, you're going to make it. He's up there with me, somewhere up there with me, and maybe a little older, maybe a little younger, I don't know. But he remembers that story, one grain of rice. So let us go to a commercial right now, and we'll be right back with our next story.
We all know smoking is harmful, right? But did you know that even after the smoke clears, the danger remains? This is called third-hand smoke. Third-hand smoke is the toxic residue left behind on surfaces like furniture, walls, or even clothes. These harmful chemicals can linger for days, weeks, or even months. Young children and pets are especially vulnerable. They can ingest these toxins simply by touching contaminated surfaces and then putting their hands or toys in their mouth. Best way to protect your loved ones? Make your home and car completely smoke-free. Remember, it's not just about the smoke you see, but the unseen toxins you leave behind. Protect your family from third-hand smoke. Choose a smoke-free environment.
Hi, my name is Cammie Starks. I would recommend any parent to participate in this program due to the fact that it helps us learn about what the kids are learning and also to better our children in the community. And I just give thanks to those, Lucy, that recommended me to come to the program, and it's just been an honor and finding out the development of the children of the school systems that's very needed, and I just give thanks, and I ask that any parent, friends, family to participate, because it's very helpful to find out what's going on with the children and also to help the children, and I just give thanks.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Menifee, and I am a new leader of the Hartford Parent University program. The program to me is very important because I feel like a lot of parents really need to get involved in their children's lives. I don't have younger children right now, but I do have grandkids. I have older children, and if this program was around back when my kids were smaller, even though they graduated from high school, I was very active, in their schools. I think a lot of parents would have been a lot more involved because this program actually gets parents involved. They do different programs that make you want to come, that make you want to be involved in your kids' programs. I have experienced some of the programs that they have to offer, and I might say I really enjoyed it, which I know my grandkids would really enjoy it. So this program is very, very important because the way things are going today, our kids really, really need their parents in their lives and focused on what it is that they're doing to help brighten their future.
Welcome back to Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner. I was studying a story yesterday. I don't know why. I was doing so many things yesterday, and I said, I have to have a different story for tomorrow. tomorrow, and I knew I was going to do 1 grain of rice. So I was studying this story, and I'm beginning to exercise, believe it or not. I'm going down to the gym, getting done exercising. There are some people who didn't believe that I would get down there, but I mean, it's right in my building, so hey, there's no real excuse for not doing something. But exercising to me is so boring. I mean, it is so boring. I mean, what do? You move around, you kick your leg, you know. Oh, and the one thing I won't do is the treadmill. Oh, now that's the most boring thing to me. But my friends say, it's not boring. Put on your music and just walk, and So maybe I'll do that. I'll tell you about my little tricycle as soon as I finish this little story. I was studying a story from the Russian fairy tales. I cannot remember, and I was doing all of these things. I can't remember the name of the story. I can't remember what, when I got up this morning, I wanted to study it, and I still couldn't remember it. I said, where am I? What am I going to do? I didn't know what to do. So here it goes. I'm going to tell you what I remember of this story. Now, there were 3 brothers. And I when you tell a story, especially if you're a storyteller, you have to get the sense of the people, You gotta get the sense of the people. I don't have really the sense of the people, but I'm going to tell you the story, and I hope you enjoy it. There were 3 brothers. 2 were very clever, and 1 was a simpleton. And so one day they decided, the simpleton suggested that they go to the woods and, have lunch, like a picnic. So they went out to the woods, and they put up their tripod and put their pot on this, and they put their gruel into the pot, their food into the pot, and realized they had their flame. So the oldest brother said, I'll walk and see if I could find somewhere where I could get fire, where I could get a light. So he walked, and he saw a bee keeper's house. And so he said that, oh, grandfather, would you please give us a light? We don't have a light to light our food. And the grandfather said, well, then sing me a song. I have no songs to sing, grandfather. Well, dance for me. I cannot dance, grandfather. And you cannot get a light, said grandfather. Go away. And he took a strip of flesh from the oldest brother's back, and back he went to his brother. Said, I could not get a light. He took a strip of flesh from my back. I could not get it. And the second brother just kind of laughed. You couldn't get the light? That's all right. I'll go and get the light. So the second brother goes, and he walks, and he says, well, grandfather. And grandfather meets him and says, my brothers and I are out here, and we need a light for our food. Can you give us a light? He says, can you sing me a song? He says, I know no songs. He said, can you tell me a tale? I have no tales to tell. I don't know any tales. Well, you get no light. And he took a strip of flesh from his back as he walked away. And the second brother went back, and they had no light. And the simpleton just looks at him, and the 2 brothers just says, look at each other, and they didn't know quite what to do. And the simpleton says, I'll go. So he goes, and he says, grandfather, we need a light to light our food. And grandfather says, can you sing me a song? I know no songs. Can you tell me a tale? I could tell you a tale. I could tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you a tale. Now he went over and he sat on a straw and he said to grandfather, come sit near me. So grandfather sat near him, right across from him. He said, yeah, you sit right there. And grandfather sat there with, he had a big bald spot in the back of his head that was facing the sun. So the simpleton started to tell him the tale. And he told him about a man who was riding on his horse, going to town, I think. And he was riding, and all of a sudden his horse stopped. And he would go no further. So, and while he kept trying to get the horse to move, he had an axe that was stuck in his belt. And that axe kept bouncing up and down. Boom, 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 boom. And cut off the horse's rump. Well, the simpleton said, I just kept on going with the horse. It kept going and going for a couple of years, doing my farming and doing what I had to do. And one year, I saw the horse's rump. Are you listening? He says, yes, I'm listening. One thing I didn't tell you about the story, the simpleton said, whatever you do, do not interrupt me. Whatever you do, he told him not to interrupt him, because if he interrupts him, he's going to take 3 strips of flesh from his back. But the old man didn't interrupt him at all, he said. And every once in a while, the simpleton would say, did you hear me? You listened to the story. And he would take his mitt and he would hit him on the back of the head on his bald spot. Are you listening? And the old man would say, yes. Old grandfather would say, yes, I'm listening. I'm listening to the light. I'm listening. And simpleton kept going. And he said, I found that rump. And he was grazing in the field. And I took the rump and I sewed him to the front of my horse. Did you hear me? Did you hear what I said? And grandma said, yes. And he hit him on the back of his bald head. He said, you sure you're listening now? I'll bow. You sure? She said, yes, I'm listening. So then he said we kept on going for a couple of more years. And I was doing my work. Then the simpleton said, this is not working the way I wanted it to work. Here I am almost at the end of the story, and nothing has happened. So then he started another story. Your grandfather and my grandfather was riding their horses. And my grandfather got on top of your grandfather's horse, and he was just going along. And the old man said, oh no. My grandfather was on top of your grandfather, and he was riding his horse. And the simpleton said, oh no. And he smacked him in his head, and he took 3 strips of flesh from his back, and he went and got his light, and he went back to his brothers, and he lit that fire, and they ate their meal. Now, that's kind of the end of the story. But after they finish eating, the story will continue. And that is the end of that tale. Now, that is where my studying stopped. Right there. Now, what did the simpleton want the beekeeper to do? Do you have any idea why was he slapping him on his head every couple of times? Every once in a while when he was telling the story. he needed that beekeeper to interrupt him so he could get the light. And he could take 3 strips of flesh from his back, just like he took from his brothers. 1 for each brother and then 1 for him. So that's a story. That's how I remember the story. And I liked the story. And I'm sure I could tell it a whole lot better if I could only remember what the name of the story was, which I can't. But I remember basically the story. How do you remember story? I don't know. You know, you just remember stories. So that's the end of that story. The Russian tale, the Russian fairy tale. And if anyone from Russia is listening to this story, I know you probably know the name of that story. And if I did not tell it in a respectful way, I give my apologies, because you should always tell someone else's story in a respectful way. And I'm sorry, right today I did the best that I could do. And next week, maybe I will do one thing at a time. 1 grain of rice. Just one thing at a time. And then I'll maybe do 2 things. Maybe if I can finish with that, then I can do 4 things. And then and maybe when I come here next week, I'll be all prepared and not so out of sorts, but that's the way I am. A very unorganized person. But maybe before I close my eyes for the final time, I will be organized. That's my one prayer. I will be organized, because I went into, I'm rambling now, but I will just tell you this one little incident. I want to ride a bike this summer, give my car a rest. And so there was a woman in my building, and she has a 3-wheeler, and it's a little dusty. So I went to the office. I said, whose bike is that? And so they told me, and I went up and I asked her, could I ride her bike? So she said, yes, I could ride her bike. And so I'm going to try to ride this bike, which some people say I can't ride. It's all 3 big adult 3-wheel bike. Says I can't ride the bike, but I'm going to try my best, and I'm going to get my muscles all strong, and I'm going to walk better than I walk, and my knees are not going to hurt, and all of that. 1 step at a time. I'm just going to go around the block a little bit and then come back and maybe go a little further the next day. And, but I was telling you about organized, and this lady, I had knocked on her door, and she opened her door. Oh, what a beautiful apartment she had. Everything so organized. It was just so beautiful. And I said, wow, I wonder, could I ever do that? Because to me, that's amazing. Maybe to some of you, that's not amazing, but to me, it's amazing. So I thanked her very much, and I went back to my apartment. And I opened the door, and I said, wow, you are so comfortable, and I like you just the way you are. I'm just going to get a little more organized. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So that's my little tale and my little rambling for this week. And I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to say goodbye. And you remember, read a little, write a little. Come on, dream big. And I'll see you next week.